Alert at the Constitutional Court, Conde Pumpido wants to turn Pedro Sanchez's democratic memory into a fundamental right for Spaniards. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to a new edition of Precautionary Measures with Miguel Ángel Pérez. And today we have to talk again about the President of the Constitutional Court, Cándido Conde Pumpido, and the favors he does or wants to do for the President of the government, Pedro Sánchez. And we bring you some information that is without a doubt tremendous. The latest one he's preparing right now, well, the second to last, with the Constitutional Court to always give Pedro Sánchez a helping hand, as we say. I have always told you for many months now here on Precautionary Measures with Miguel Ángel Pérez that Conde Pumpido is a key figure in Pedro Sánchez's judicial network to achieve his goals, so pay attention. Because now what Conde Pumpido wants to do in the Constitutional Court with the help of the other leftist magistrates is to enshrine Pedro Sánchez's democratic memory as a fundamental right for all Spaniards. Did he already do it in the past with abortion? We are going to share all the information, all the details, as always, showing it on screen so you can follow along from home. Certainly very relevant information. Alert at the Constitutional Court, Conde Pumpido wants to establish democratic memory as a fundamental right. The Constitutional Court, presided over by Cándido Conde Pumpido, wants to establish democratic memory as a fundamental right for Spaniards. The Democratic Memory Law of Pedro Sánchez's government came into force in October 2022, and it replaced the 2007 Historical Memory Law of the government of José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. It is worth noting that several regional governments of the PP and Vox in Aragon, the Valencian Community or Cantabria, upon coming to power, promoted regulations to repeal regional democratic memory laws that had been promoted by socialist governments. Sánchez's government then challenged these regional repeal regulations before the Constitutional Court, arguing that they encroached on state powers, violated victims' rights, or failed to comply with international human rights commitments. It should be noted that Article 161.2 of the Spanish Constitution allows the central government to challenge before the Constitutional Court provisions and resolutions of the autonomous communities that do not have an article, to challenge the rule or act forcing the Constitutional Court to ratify or lift such provisions and resolutions. Autonomous communities. Not 5 months, let's explain it, because I know this is very much about precautionary measures. Pedro Sánchez's government passes the democratic law promoted by some autonomous communities, which were then governed by the PSOE. What they do is socialist, human, article government autonomous communities. So what happens next? PP and Vox manage to govern in several autonomous communities where they don't have the right democratic memory, or in Cantabria. And when they come to power, what they say is, we're going to repeal these regulations that the socialist regional governments had implemented in democratic rights. They make those repeals, and that's when the article comes into play, challenging the provisions and resolutions of the autonomous regions, which are then suspended. This was appealed a long time ago, and the 5 months during which those autonomous repeals had to remain suspended have already passed. And what Conde Pumpido's Constitutional Court has done is to extend them so that the repeals of the democratic law that were promoted remain suspended. Up to that point, alright then, sources from the Constitutional Court say the leftist bloc, consisting of 6 magistrates and the president who is running for election, 161.2 of the Spanish Constitution, when challenging and resolving the decisions of the autonomous communities, which does not. Democratic memory. All of this with the aim of establishing the so-called democratic memory as a fundamental right for all Spaniards, by Article 161.2 of the Spanish Constitution. For the government, the advocacy of another law, it says, can never be unconstitutional. In reality, there is nothing to deliberate. However, The leftist bloc of the Constitutional Court is studying and considering democratic memory as a fundamental right. Legally, they tell us it is an aberration by socialist executives in human rights, Article 2, if they manage to push their plan forward. This would seriously undermine democratic and political pluralism by preventing the current government from making autonomous decisions it is not entitled to. Democratic memory promoted by executives of another political persuasion, thus preventing political alternation and the purpose of the democratic memory law. What is at stake here is that an autonomous government, Article 161 the Spanish Constitution to the government. Gobierno previo de otro signo político. Entonces, claro, si esto es inválido, to contest this repeal at the Constitutional Court. We are facing a serious risk to the provisions and resolutions of the autonomous communities' democratic memory promoted by the executives of the autonomous community. Currently, all the repeals by the autonomous communities are provisionally suspended, pending a final decision by the Constitutional Court. The suspension had to be extended since the initial 5 months stipulated to maintain that suspension have been exceeded. In Spain, fundamental rights are mainly regulated by the government. Provisions and resolutions from autonomous communities without democratic memory rights led by executives. In humans, Article 161.2 of the Constitution refers to the government as a person and binds all public authorities. Fundamental rights are inviolable, inalienable, and non-waivable. The provisions and resolutions of the community serve as a limit to the legislator. Precisely, the Constitutional Court is the supreme interpreter and the ultimate guarantor of these rights. Of course, the democratic law promoted by executives in rights, Article 161 of the Spanish Constitution to the democratic government, promoted by socialist executives in human rights. This is extremely serious, and how can they intend to elevate this to a fundamental right for all Spaniards? Well, it's a huge scandal just like the other one I was telling you about yesterday. And the main character in this is also the president of the Constitutional Court, Cándido Conde Pumpido, who is also studying the way to endorse Pedro Sánchez governing without presenting new general state budgets. All of this comes after Sánchez has extended the budgets for the last 3 years. The President of the Constitutional Court would be looking for a way to give Article 161.2 the importance of approving the budgets, while at the same time confirming that it is constitutional for the Spanish government to challenge provisions under Article 161 of the Spanish Constitution. The socialist government, which allows Sánchez to govern by issuing decrees and bypassing parliamentary oversight, all of this under the pretext of an alleged urgency. Now, if the President of the Constitutional Court manages to push through an endorsement so that Sánchez can govern without approving the provisions and resolutions of the consolidation of an autocratic and authoritarian regime in the name of democratic memory promoted by human executives, article of the Spanish Constitution to the government. The corruption typical of Pedro Sánchez's government, of his right-hand men, in short, of all the socialists, but also the other kind of corruption that is happening in the institutions. Resolutions from the autonomous communities that do not respect democratic memory, promoted by socialist executives in the Court of Auditors. Certainly, this is extremely serious. And here, with precautionary measures, we will continue to expose all these schemes that are being cooked up in the dark. 161.2 Spanish Constitution Article A La. Let's see what's happening, and of course here with precautionary measures we will continue to push them forward. So that once reported, maybe they'll think twice before committing that new misdeed. That's all for this edition of Precautionary Measures with Miguel Ángel Pérez. I hope you liked the video. If so, you know you can leave your comments. Article government, supreme provisions and resolutions for less than €7 a month. This is all to support the Precautionary Measures community with Miguel Ángel Pérez, which includes all of you and me. And you can also make your financial contributions via BSOM at 627-556-370, 627-556-370. The most important thing, as I always say, is that everyone gets this information, since information is for executives. Article